Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show and podcast with your host, Trent M. Clark, 3-time World Series coach, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, having started 12 companies, coach to the 1%, and an international speaker. This show is going to be your go-to podcast for facing adversity, being inspired, and overcoming obstacles, all from the best in the world, business, sports, and leadership. Hate the crappy ingredients in many beverages and energy drinks? Rebellious Infusions are the go-to functional beverage. They have 5 or fewer plant-based organic ingredients, no sugar, no calories, loaded with antioxidants to boost your immune system, and L-theanine for brain health. Rebellious Infusions are available at drinkrebellious.com. Rethink your drink. For 10% off of your next purchase, use the code 99999.
Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I am super excited that you could join us today. I am with my superstar guest, Crystal Waltman. How are you doing, Crystal?
I'm great, Trent. Thanks for having me today.
I'm so excited. Like you and I, we met at the Super Bowl and super just excited to have you on. You have a great story and a great book. And we're going to talk about all that. For those who are joining us, I'm live from the NFL Combine today in Indianapolis. So I'm in a hotel room with this great background. And so your background looks awesome. Like, look at this. Look at the abs right there on your swing. Like, were you going deep right there? Like that softball swing right there?
Over the fence. Always shoot for the fence. Yes.
I love it. Swinging for the fence. That's a great photo. Is that actually the cover of the book right there? No, your cover's your photo. Is it on the back? That photo?
It's the back cover.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Boom.
Oh, and then a few artists have picked it up. My friend shot this, Tony Mandrich. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah. Tony Mandrich, the football player?
Yes, him and I are great friends, and he is also a wonderful photographer. He does a lot of great sports grit,
Yeah. So one thing that's a little thing that most people don't know about you. You hang out with Tony Mandrich. And people who don't know Tony Mandrich is probably the biggest, most popular offensive lineman ever in a draft. He was the first one who really became a superstar draft athlete back when, and this is funny at the combine, right? Because here I am. And, now people put a lot of stock in the offensive line. And back then it was all quarterbacks and receivers and, and running backs. And he was really that first multi-million-dollar athlete that was in the line. And obviously had a story about him in Sports Illustrated while he was in college at Michigan State, which was really unique. So that's got to be a cool relationship. But we are here to talk about Crystal Waltman today, who I'm super excited, and her book, Quitting to Win, which was the 2020 Health Book of the Year. And man, when I think about that book, like quitting to win, it sounds so counterintuitive, right? Like from all of us who are like grit guys and like, hey, you never quit, never say die, right? It's like, wait, quit to win? Hold on, like I can't do that. So this is going to be great to dive into a little bit. But Crystal, first of all, tell them where they can find you besides crystalwaltman.com.
Yeah, anywhere books are sold, crystalwaltman.com, Amazon, audiobook, download, whatever.
Your social?
Barnes & Noble, social. Crystal Clear Fit on Instagram and LinkedIn, Crystal Waltman.
All right. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. For those joining the show and you've never joined us before, I want you to think about for our listeners, we talk to 1%ers about the challenges. So if you are having challenges these days in your business, you are on your road to be elite and you're running up against walls and you're looking to do something greater, I think this is the podcast for you. We talk to a lot of folks who have certainly accomplished a lot, but not without trial, not without challenge along the way. In fact, I would dare say, Crystal, that a lot of my folks that have been on our show, the very trial and charge that took them down a pretty tough road was the very catalyst that got them to the next level oftentimes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but a little background on you, a superstar softballer, hence the swing, which may be better than mine. And that pisses me off. All right. I'll just say that. And then played at Central Arizona, national championship, finished out school at Arizona State. You published this book, but, a lot of people probably don't know the fact, like you've been health conscious for years. You are an absolute yoga expert, having actually studied with Bikram himself, which Bikram Hot Yoga is probably one of the world-renowned hot yogas of all the world, despite the man and his issues. The concept is great. My wife and I do Bikram yoga and love it. And I think it's called something else now, but the concept, the modality, the methodology is all the same. And I mean, 30 years you've been at that. So like your body fat is 3.5%, or Crystal, where are you at right now?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So, I playing sports in college, I broke myself, and that's where I first got introduced to pain pills. Was in the college trainer room and keep playing. And, we played like soldier softball. It was like, no matter what we played. And, that was back then, that was really the culture of do what's best for the team, not what's best for the player in the long run. And I think times have changed significantly where they do more what's better for the player now and look at them long term. But after I got out of college, I was in so much pain that, they said, oh, your back's broken. It's like that of a lineman. You need surgery. I was so young. I was like, what? How? I can't get back surgery. So let me lose some weight. Let me go to yoga. Let me build a strong core. And that kept me going for a while, but I was drinking to relieve pain. I was taking pain pills to relieve pain. I was going to yoga. So everything looked good on the outside, but physically and emotionally, the substance started to catch up with me as this progressive disease. And in college, I was a very high performer. As long as we won and we celebrated, I wasn't a daily drinker, but a very much like a blackout drinker on the weekends, just when we won, which was all every week, right? Because out of our 100, we had like 101 games that season, like we won 99 of those games. Yeah. So I was part of this great dynasty that was going through. And, back during club ball, I mean, even some of the dads drank with their daughters, and it was just really acceptable when we were on the road together, play hard, win, celebrate, and my life became filled with blank spaces. And I don't know if you ever saw that movie, A Girl on a Train, but where she witnessed a murder and she was in a blackout state. And my life became like that, where I didn't really know what I was involved with or what happened that night. And then, people would tell me bits and pieces, and I was losing myself, just completely losing myself. And I had to stop and ask for help.
I mean, that's a lot of courage right there, right? That you finally decide. And it's interesting that, one of the things you brought up, I mean, there's a lot there, but one of the things you brought up is we've adapted better to individual health and wellness and recognizing like, hey, this isn't the best for the person. And I do think, growing up as a kid, it was win at all cost and play through it and, rub some dirt in it, right? Like that was a common phrase I heard many an injury, rub some dirt in it, and which was the old adage, just keep playing, and I can remember really that shift in the 90s. And really it makes perfect sense, right? If you're playing at 80%, it's not long before, especially at the professional level where I was at, like, 3-4%, you're real average real fast. Like if you drop off, like everyone can beat you all of a sudden. And they smell your pain. Like if they know you can't get to the ball because you got a tweaked oblique or you got something like that, just kind of start pouring it inside on you. Like they smell it, man. And so they really, you're taken advantage of. And so, from a logical standpoint, I've never understood it. Like, hey, why are we running somebody out at 80% when we have somebody ready to go who's actually going to be able to probably contribute to the team? Because the likelihood of this person at 70% or 60% being better than someone at 95% isn't good at this level. Like everybody's pretty good, right? And so it was always a challenge to me to see that happen. And I can recall one athlete, and he threw me off, man. Like it was because I'm the grinder, the gritty guy. You've seen me. I don't look the part of a pro baseball player, right? At 5'6", 175 pounds when I'm playing. So, I was always like, play through it, play hard. I couldn't run the risk of going to the bench and never coming back. Right. So, man, I remember this guy who was just a fabulous player. And he was like, we're going to play 162 games. I'm not going to dive in April for a ball in the cold. I'm going to play it and we may give up a run. But if I got hurt and I lost 3 months, like, how's that going to help the team? And I was like, wait, what? You're not going to dive? like, I was like, what are you doing? Like, but it was totally logical, right? Like, he's like, we're at 162 games. Like, if we got to sacrifice this one run and I don't run the risk of losing 90 days to breaking an ankle or doing, it was like, wow, that's a different mentality that I didn't grow up with, that I didn't really understand. But, when he said it, I thought like, wow, there's a lot of logic and understanding to that. Let's come back to this other component, which is so big, which is, play through the pain. And so you start numbing, the pain the best you can, which of course is doing major detriment to whatever's hurt, because it's just, it's just a veneer, right? You're just, you're masking it. Meanwhile, probably causing more damage. Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair to say. And then fast forward, I had to get sober. So my life was in shambles. I had to get sober. My marriage was, on the rocks. My husband was like, you can't, have the kids, watch the kids anymore. Like, you're no good to us unless you take care of this. But at the same time, he wanted to fix me. He didn't want his wife to be an alcoholic. There was this shame behind the labels. I don't want you to go to those meetings, so I tried everything, going away to all these fancy spas and camps and trying to stop on my own. And I would come back and, I tried everything. Only drink with me, only drink this, only drink, everything that every alcoholic has ever been through. And to just know that I was wired differently, right? So it just has a different effect on me. So then I got sober. So once I got sober, my back, I started noticing the pain was still there, right?
Okay.
And then we moved into a new house, and I had movers for like a week, but it was like that second week when I'm just putting every little thing away, just fully fatigued, and went up and over with the laundry basket and just exploded my back, ended up on the floor, and, woke up. I didn't know how long I had been there. And then they were like, I can't believe you're walking this long. Like, you're structurally, your bones are not holding you up. It's your core, right? So all the years of yoga and just my muscular system was holding me up, but my skeletal system was just in shambles. And I believe that alcoholism played a part in that, as far as like pulling on my bone marrow, right? I was like always in a state kind of maybe of malnourishment, right? Because it would play hard and then, deplete. And back then we didn't know about recovery as much either. We didn't know that recovery is just as important as performing. So recovery wasn't part of our training program. It was train 5 days a week, play on the weekends. There was no recovery. And when we had off, when we were supposed to be recovering, we were usually drinking. So I was really depleted in my bones. And anyways, went in for surgery, got all fixed up, L3, L4, L5, S1, and 4.5 hours there, closed me up, went in the side, took care of some side hernias, the ones that exploded. And, I didn't know if I was ever going to walk again or run or chase my kid. And I was just like, then you go through that really emotional thing of being hurt. And then I was in the hospital, just like every day I would get up and take a step, take another step, take another step, go to the hallway, go to the door. I was just determined to just get up and walk. I was also went through it with 3 doctors, one who carefully managed my pain medicine, of how not to get addicted because I had been sober. So how do I not, because if they just give you the pills, right?
Yeah.
And they just keep taking the pills and you don't, there's no points for pain, you need to rest, you need to recover. So I wrote about that in my book, about how to go into surgery when you're sober and how to stay sober through that process. You have to take extra steps because not all doctors know about addiction. They just know about surgery and they want to give you those pills. So I came out of that and, every day is a gift. And now that, I'm a head coach of a softball team, and just standing on that field and, having those kids come back to me and being able to share all these moments really just is the gift. But it really breaks down to the daily dose, because most athletes, like you said, what is your greatest thing is also your Achilles heel.
Yeah.
So you want to go all in all the time. And so I've developed this thing that I live by, and I've created this little culture around the daily dose. And it stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So those things that I used to want to get the synthetic high from, like, man cannot make better than what God has already constructed your brain to make those chemicals on their own. If you know how to turn on those chemicals, which I never learned until I was into my 40s, and I started studying the brain about how not to be hacked and stuff. you always reach for that. Like as growing up, what's on, everything you see on TV, if you don't feel well, you take a headache pill. If you start to feel a little uneasy, you eat more, you need sugar, you need caffeine, you need all these things, all these synthetic things, all these pills out there. So what the daily dose is about, it's really about how we're being hacked every day. And what does it mean to be hacked? To be hacked means that something or someone has gained unauthorized access to a system or computer. Normally we think about that as our bank accounts, our Facebook accounts, our digital stuff. Like, oh, I was hacked.
Our identification.
Identification, yes.
Yeah.
But our brain is our supercomputer, and our body is made up of the 7 different systems: the skeletal system, muscular, circulatory, nervous. And how do we manage that every day on a daily basis, one day at a time? And how do we learn to turn those drugs on and get the natural high on our own? So if you start to feel restless, irritable, and discontent, what do? You pick up your phone, you call a friend, you go for a walk, so the daily dose breaks down to these basic middle America stuff, not, that most athletes already know, right? Water, sleep, food, nutrition, and connection. Mm-hmm. And it is just that basic. And when I start to get, my addicted brain gets, will go all in on something. And I constantly, every day I have to go, all right, take it back to basics, take it back to basics. If something's spinning in my head too long, pick up a phone, run it by somebody, either my coach, my mentor, or my mentee. Always have somebody ahead of you that you want to walk their path, and always be leading somebody. And that really tethers me, in the Holy Spirit and just in life in general. Because if you have somebody is following you and you just want to go do that, exactly what that person has done, you just go ask them, how'd you do it? Right. And then you stay the path.
Well, I think that we got to dive into the daily dose, which the daily dose is in the book, right? Like this is in the book, what you talk about. I mean, so it's one of the things that it's always been challenging, right? Because the simple stuff, it's very simple. Right? Like the design is uncanny. It's unbelievable how the human body is made. And I'm a physiology guy, right? I went to school to study exercise science and physical education. So, it's just uncanny how it all works together. But like you said, it's very simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy to wake up every day and say, hey, listen, I'm going to make all the right decisions today. I just did a show last week about this, and I love Patino's book on success as a choice. But the problem is we have like 50,000 choices a day now. It's a lot of choices, right? So let's talk about pivoting that choice matter and how we're going to do that to quitting to win. Because I think this is kind of where we're diving into is like when I talked on the show last week, I talked about these really world beaters I was with last week in Fort Lauderdale and Miami area. And, they didn't run their lives like everybody else runs. Like they had eliminated things out of their life that 99% of my friends do not eliminate, right? Like they're like, hey, it's Friday night, like, hey. And they're like, yeah, I got no time for it. Like that.
Yeah, no time for that. I can tell you one thing I cut out a long time ago is going to the grocery store before COVID, right? I know I look at my family plan for the week, how many dinners are we going to have, how many breakfasts is, I'm able to order it online and curbside pickup. Like I don't need to walk down the grocery store and see 1,000 options and get sidetracked. Like I know what I'm going to wear. It's all about like, you don't want to waste. I have this one exercise in the book. It's called the diet, how to activate your diet. But it's like you have all these choices to make, and write all these choices down on a sticky note. Where am I going on vacation? What am I going to do Friday night for dinner? Where am I going to take my wife out tonight? Am I going to call this friend? Is my daughter going to, go to this camp? Write all these down. And then you put it in 3 categories: do it, delegate it, dump it. And the reason why you're running slow, because your brain, just like your computer, if you have all those windows open, you cannot focus. So therefore you have to eliminate and activate your decision diet. And decide means to cut off. Right. Yeah. So people like to say, oh, we got so many options. And yes, we're blessed with options of, how many schools little Johnny can go to, but you don't want to lose your energy, and you don't want to leak energy. Yeah. And that's what all these opportunities have. So you have to know about your inputs. Where are you getting your information? What are you listening to? What are you doing this week? Like, map out your whole week. What are your goals? So when you have these 90-minute flow sessions, I'm going to get done in 90 minutes, what some people will take all week to get done.
Big deal.
So yeah, the daily dose is for those people that can't get into those, like they just don't feel well. Why don't I feel well? Or maybe they can't, like your super achievers, your high performers, they have to know how to fuel throughout the day. I know when I get in a writing flow, so I do 90-minute flows, and I try to do 2 90-minute flows a day, 3 times a week. And that includes my marketing, my outsourcing, my writing blocks, and my personal stuff. So when I get in those sessions, I've already worked out, I've eaten, I have my water, everything's on do not disturb, and you get shit done. You just get it done without distraction. Your self-critic leaves you, time dilates because you're in the flow, and, you've lost track of time, and all of a sudden it's 90 minutes and you just, knocked out all this stuff. And it's really the only way to be, and, by habit stacking. And it's a simple plan for complicated people, basically.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because we always talk about, you call it habit stacking. I often call it batching, right? Like
batching.
Hey, listen, where are we going to batch, this work that needs to be done? Because I can do that. I can do 3 or 4 of those things in a 90-minute flow state. And I only need to see it once a week. Like, this isn't like, oh, I should take 5 minutes and do that today and every day, and then it'll take 30 minutes because I'll jack around with it. And you're like, wait a minute, you're wasting 30 minutes with that a day? Like, well, not intentionally, because I only really planned for 5. Like, no, I get it. But like, now it's like, oh, so 30 minutes a day, or you could do 1 30-minute session 1 time a week and knock it all out, right?
Yeah.
And so that habit stacking or batching is so important, man. Like, it's so much right there that, in talking about how we can be efficient. And it's funny because, some of the most guilty party in the world are the athletes, and of this of the daily dose of really neglecting 2 or 3 of those components, right? Entrepreneurs, they're pretty good at neglecting 2 or 3 as well. But yet they're highly recognized as these high achievers. And yet they're actually in part running up against themselves, limiting their potential, limiting how far they could go. And, in the athletic world, your body's all you have, right? Once it's gone, we don't need you anymore, right? Like, what are you going to provide for us anymore? Like, so it's such an important feature to the career, yet how many people are just regularly abusing it? And it starts early. And I can recall as a kid where I remember my mom telling me, like, I'm so glad you're in sports because, those athlete kids, because we looked good, they weren't doing all the things that other kids were doing. And I was like, wait a minute, Mom. Like, what? Like,
Right.
Maybe if you don't know, you don't know, but like, they were, some of the worst runners in the school, right? And it was a real challenge. But I think John Q. Public thought, hey, these kids are in shape, they're healthy, they're doing a good job. They're committed to winning the conference title, so they're not going to be doing these things that these other kids are doing. Not my kid.
Not my kid, yeah.
What do you say to that? Like, because this is, it's somewhat established pretty early in the game and in the sport world, and it just permeates, especially when there's more and more money and more pressures that come along with it.
Need to hydrate but tired of plain old water? You need Rebellious Infusions. No sugar, no calories, loaded with antioxidants to boost your immune system, and L-theanine for brain health, 10 organic flavors, and convenient liquid packets. Just add 16 ounces and you are on your way. Rethink your drink at drinkrebellious.com. For 10% off your next purchase, use the code 99999. If you are a business or organization leader and want expert advice, coaching, and guidance to help you build your team to be the best, then email Trent directly at trent@leadershipity.com or connect with him at Trent M. Clark on LinkedIn.